I want to talk about playing games with two people in particular, Ilhan Omar and Bernie Sanders, because they like to play games. Recently, both of them have issued statements calling for ceasefire. Actually, Ilhan called for ceasefire. Bernie Sanders is calling for, the humanitarian aid. He still won't really say ceasefire. But these two in particular, who describe themselves as progressives, they're basically trying to play both sides. They're trying to play that progressive lane, but they're also trying to play the establishment Democrat lane. And I'm going to show you how this works. We're going to start with Ilhan Omar. If you remember, at the State of the Union address, Ilhan actually sat with other members of the squad demanding a ceasefire when we all pointed out that AOC was not a part of that group. I want to bring up this picture here. Notice she's with Cori Bush. I forget this woman's name, but Cori Bush and Ayanna Pressley, right? Remember, we all pointed out that AOC was not with them. She already separated herself, right? But don't be fooled. Because something that I've noticed about Ilhan Omar, for whatever reason, even people who are really upset with AOC still want to give her some type of credit. They say she's more bold. Actually, they say her and Rashida Tlaib tend to be a little bit more bolder. I'm going to show you how Ilhan is also just playing a game, just in a different way. You see, she actually tweeted this. She said, "Stop sending bombs. I'll continue to push the Biden administration for a permanent ceasefire." So that was March 8th. She sent that. That was on my birthday. Okay. But let me show you what she does. We're going to go to 2023 and we're going to go to now. In 2023, Ilhan Omar calls Israel Lobby AIPAC a right-wing PAC funded by dark money. So let's get into this piece here. Representative Ilhan Omar called AIPAC, which calls itself bipartisan, a right-wing super PAC and accused it of being funded by dark money. Omar is accusing a pro-Israel group of working to unseat her with a more moderate primary challenger in the upcoming 2024 election. So, yes, they are working to unseat her and others. Here's the problem with her statement. Ilhan Omar knows damn well that AIPAC doesn't just lobby for the right wing. They also lobby for the Democratic Party. So what Ilhan Omar has decided to do, she's basically, I'm going to call out the Israeli lobby. I'm going to call for a permanent ceasefire. But I'm going to make it seem like the Israeli lobby is only funding right-wing politicians. This is how Ilhan still maintains to stay in the game. Because even though she is a little bit more vocal than other members of the squad, even on some issues where AOC has chosen to be quiet, she is still very much in the pocket of the Democrat Party leadership and the establishment. And I'll tell you how. Hakeem Jeffries, who's the minority leader of the House, supports the Israeli lobby, supports AIPAC, supports the state of Israel. He's not shy about this. He said this multiple times publicly. Now, that's your minority leader of the House. But Ilhan Omar is going to sit there and pretend like AIPAC is only supporting the Republicans. Richie Torres, who Ilhan Omar has actually debated with. She knows damn well that Richie Torres is funded by AIPAC. So why would Ilhan Omar only make this statement and make it seem like it's only happening with Republican politicians? Why would she do that? If you are a progressive politician in the Democratic Party in DC, you are facing a lot of pressure from Democrat leadership, correct? Whether it was Nancy Pelosi or now it's Hakeem Jeffries, right? So the way that she remains in their good graces is by making it seem like the Israel issue is partisan, when she knows damn well that both parties support the state of Israel. Both parties take money from the Israeli lobby. But she's not calling out the Democrat politicians for doing this. She's not calling out the Democratic Party for doing it. That's how she maintains her seat, at least for now. You have to remember that Ilhan Omar barely won her reelection. Barely. That was 2023, that statement she made there. But this was recent, just to show you she hasn't changed. AIPAC has endorsed 109 Republican insurrectionist election deniers who voted to overturn the 2020 election to Joe Biden. You see this? Straight up Democrat establishment talking points. That sounds like something Nancy Pelosi would say. That sounds like something Hakeem Jeffries would say. She goes on to say you cannot be pro-democracy and endorse insurrectionists. See what she's doing? It's that simple. Proud to reject AIPAC and its GOP extremism. Now, again, she is making it seem like AIPAC is not supporting Democrat politicians. She's making it seem like AIPAC is only supporting the Republican politicians. So she posts this here, reject AIPAC and Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, and Ron DeSantis mega donors. Why isn't Joe Biden's face on here? Why isn't Hakeem Jeffries' face on there? Why isn't Richie Torres' face on there? Because then she would have to admit that AIPAC is bipartisan and that both parties have this issue, that both parties back the state of Israel. And that would not go over well for her in the Democratic Party. You got to be kidding me here with this. Because first of all, Joe Biden has taken the most. He's taken the most. But she out here telling people, here she is, join us. Join us. Do I think people should reject AIPAC? Abso-fucking-lutely. But do I think that AIPAC is only funding Republicans? I know they're not. I've shown it to you on Open Secrets. That's the game that she said, thank you so much. It's a game and people keep falling for it. Yeah, this is the game that they play. Bernie Sanders is the same damn thing. Now, I showed you earlier, she said that she wants a ceasefire, right? Okay. Listen to this.
On the president and this election, which is, as you point out, a really important one, you didn't vote for President Biden or for uncommitted in Minnesota's primary. The uncommitted vote was a big part of that primary in your home state. I wonder, if the election were held today, would you vote for Joe Biden? Can you confirm that he would have your vote today?
Of course, democracy is on the line. We are facing down fascism.
Everybody peep the game. Now you're sitting here, Ilhan Omar, and you said multiple times before that we need a permanent ceasefire. You sat there with other members of the squad and you're saying permanent ceasefire now. Joe Biden gives a speech at the State of the Union address. Joe Biden tells people that he is going to continue to give Israel weapons, which means no permanent ceasefire. Abby is asking you if you're going to support Joe Biden and you say, of course, we have to protect our democracy. Now, all of a sudden, democracy is more important than genocide, which we don't even have a true democracy in this country. And she knows that as well. This is the game. The moment these Justice Democrat politicians actually won their races and were in DC, once they got into office, there was nobody, and I don't know who would have been in charge of this, Justice Democrats, because it seemed like it really fell off. There was nobody in the organization still like mentoring these people or staying in touch with these people. And from what I understand, it went both ways. But the point is this: these people decided that they were going to focus on their political career. If Ilhan Omar didn't care about her political career, she would not sit up here and say, of course, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. Now, Abby just told you that she didn't vote for Joe Biden or uncommitted in the primary. Now she's telling you she's going to support him in the general. So you see how this works? This is how Ilhan Omar still tries to maintain some type of street cred in the progressive community, but still tries to keep her seat and remain safe with the Dem leadership. You can't have one foot on the progressive side and one foot on the liberal side at the same time. You can't. They don't add up. Either you going all the way or you selling out. And she's selling out. The tweets are theater.
And I personally know what my life felt like having Trump as the president of this country. And I know what it felt like for my constituents and for people around this country and around the world. We have to do everything that we can to make sure that does not happen to our country again.
And do you think your constituents ultimately will come to the same conclusion that you did, you know, the tens of thousands who voted uncommitted as a protest against the president?
Well, the uncommitteds have been very clear. They want a change in policy, and we've seen that. Within 3 days, you had the vice president using the word ceasefire.
Pause. You see what's happening here? Okay. So see how the Democratic Party has co-opted not just the word progressive, but they've co-opted the word ceasefire? Kamala Harris didn't call for a ceasefire. She called for a pause. We've corrected this multiple times. But here is Ilhan Omar, who also knows that Kamala Harris called for a temporary pause, which Joe Biden had already called for. So it's not like it was something new. She's now parroting the same talking points from mainstream media and Dem leadership. This is the game.
We now have the president saying there is a red line if Israel goes into Rafah, that he is going to condition aid. So there has been a significant progress.
That is a lie. I watched the interview too, Ilhan Omar. Joe Biden never said he was going to condition aid. Joe Biden said he will always stand with Israel. He said there is no red line with standing with Israel, and he would never not give them the weapons that they need. Everybody see what's happening? The Ilhan Omars, the AOCs, all these people, how you sit there, Ilhan, and you just lie straight to the people's face.
I think it is the responsibility of every citizen of this country that cares for the humanity of all to continue to push this administration to do what it can do to end the onslaught that Palestinians are living through every single day.
All right.
You mean push the administration, right? Push the administration just like you pushed them on everything else that we didn't get? Just like you pushed them on $15 minimum wage? Ilhan Omar in this interview looks like she has been bruised, beaten. I don't know what is happening here. Her energy is way down. I don't know if she's being held hostage or what, but I don't understand, Ilhan, how you can go back to people within your community and hold your head up high. When you sit here and you say on national television, of course, you're going to vote for Joe Biden. What are you saying to your constituents? What are you saying to people in your community? Don't you guys think it's a little bit strange that she didn't vote for Joe Biden in the primary and she did not vote uncommitted in the primary? But here she is sitting on CNN telling Abby that she's going to support Joe Biden in the general. Of course, she says. Where was the of course in the primary? You got to remember, she's from Minnesota. Minnesota was one of the states that actually had one of the largest percentage of uncommitted votes. This is a game. She looks like she's being held hostage. You barely won your election last time. Won't be surprised if you lose it again, if you lose it. Because from what I've heard, and I interviewed someone from her district that came on to talk about what's happening in Somalia, and they made it very clear to me that even the Somalian community is not too fond of Ilhan, okay? Then there's Bernie Sanders. Bernie doing the same damn thing. Now let me show you Bernie's game. His game's a little bit different. You see, Bernie likes to put forth legislation, right, that he knows damn well either is not going to pass or he knows Joe Biden is not going to approve. So we'll say that he puts forth like progressive legislation, gets people all excited, but Bernie knows it's dead on arrival. That's one of the ways that Bernie tries to maintain his progressive street cred. Now, one of the things he's proposing right now is the 4-day work week, 32-hour 4-day work week. I'm all for a 4-day work week. And I'm not for no fake 4-day work week. Let's be clear about that. The fake ones are the ones that I got, like when I worked at BU, where they would say it's summertime, so you get a 4-day work week as long as you work longer hours Monday through Thursday. So instead of working like 8 hours, you basically work 10-hour days Monday through Thursday, and then they say you had that Friday off. Nah, bruh. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a 4-day work week. The 32 hours is a great idea. I do agree with that. Iceland has that. But Bernie knows this shit ain't gonna pass. Let's get into it anyway. That's actually the poll question that I have for you.
A lot of people watching right now may be getting ready to start their last day of the work week, but if Senator Bernie Sanders had his way, we'd all still be sleeping right now. The Vermont senator has introduced a bill for a 4-day work week. NBC's Bree Jackson is on the clock for us this morning, as we all still are. Bree, what's in the bill?
Good morning, Francis. So Senator Sanders may be on to something. I like this idea here. He wants to cut the standard work week from 40 hours to 32, which would happen over the span of 4 years. Now, the bill would also require overtime pay, a pay of a time and a half for workdays over 8 hours, and double the regular pay for workdays longer than 12 hours. Now, Senator Sanders argues that American workers are 400% more productive than they were back in the 1940s. But today, millions of Americans are working longer hours for lower wages. He says advancements in technology should not only benefit the CEOs, but critics of the bill say these policies would hurt the economy and therefore hurt American workers.
So it wouldn't hurt the economy. It wouldn't hurt American workers. What's interesting, though, is the pay. Because the reality is, I know this working 5 days a week. I wasn't busy all 8 hours, like Monday through Friday, right? Like there are times when you do have like, you're just kind of like, okay, I'm just here, like answering email or whatever. But there are ways that you can get that work done within 4 days, at least for my profession, there was. That being said, though, if you don't increase people's wages, and I'm not just talking about the overtime, I mean, just all together, I feel like that's a piece that is needed. I agree. Yes, we all need to have the 4-day work week. I agree with that. Give people Friday. You have 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Other countries have done this. It works out just great. I totally agree with that. But I also feel like we still need to increase the wages for people. People need a living wage in this country, because if you work at McDonald's and let's say we adopt the 4-day work week, let's say you work at McDonald's full time. So now you're like, okay, cool. I only have to work 4 days, yada, yada. But your pay hasn't increased still. So we need to think about those things.
The question that we are asking today is a pretty simple question. Do we continue the trend that technology only benefits the people on top, or do we demand that these transformational changes benefit working people?
We have that balance. This disrupts that balance. And we won't maintain the status of being the world's wealthiest nation if we kneecap the American economy with something which purports to be good for the American worker, but indeed will lead to offshoring of jobs seeking for a lower cost labor force.
And similar bills have been introduced before, including just last year, but have never even made it to a vote in the House or the Senate. Francis?
Okay, well.
Did you hear that part right there? That part's important. Never made it to the House or the Senate. This is the point that I'm trying to bring up, guys. Okay, so the game that Bernie Sanders likes to play is he likes to introduce progressive legislation that he knows damn well is either going to be dead on arrival or Joe Biden is not going to approve it. LPA Film said Bernie is doing all of this because he needs things to entice people to stay in the Democratic Party. Exactly. And that brings me to my next point with Bernie Sanders. Now, he out there saying we got to put forth these progressive policies, but Bernie Sanders still keep you in the same party and still keep you voting for the same people who are against those policies. He's still telling you, this money shouldn't be just going to the people at the top, but then he tells you to support and vote for the person who's supporting the corporate interests and the people at the top. Joe Biden is establishment. Joe Biden is corrupt. Joe Biden supports the military industrial complex. Look how many international conflicts we are already involved in under Joe Biden's presidency. You can't make this up. You can't make it up. Joe Biden supports giving more weapons and aid to Israel. But this is the part, these things that Bernie Sanders says he's against, but he'll tell you to support that person. If Bernie Sanders was serious, he would tell you to get behind one of the other candidates that's running outside of the duopoly and build a third party movement in this damn country, which he has been asked to do, and walk away from the duopoly altogether. Bernie Sanders' job is to continue to sheep herd people into the Dem establishment. So when he knows that people like himself and other progressives are not going to win, or outside forces are challenging Joe Biden and are correct on the Israel-Gaza issue and have similar policies to his, but they're more progressive, and he tells you to support Joe Biden instead of coming forward and saying, people, it is time you walk away from the two-party system. We got to back one of the third party or independent candidates that are running progressive campaigns and that actually have an agenda that is not for the government in Israel. If Bernie Sanders was serious, he would tell you to do that. He's not serious. Instead, this is what he's telling you to do.
Hello, and thanks very much for joining me. In case you haven't heard, there's an election coming up this November, and it's the most important election in the modern history of our country.
He said that in 2016, and he said that in 2020.
Now, I fully understand that while President Biden has some very significant accomplishments, which he has every right to be proud of, there are a number of areas where the administration's response to important issues has been inadequate or, in the case of Gaza, dead wrong.
So this is his part where he plays to the progressive community and lets them know, hey guys, I'm still progressive. I'm saying that Joe Biden did some things that are wrong, and I'm going to call those things out.
In my view, and the view of most progressives, the United States should not be giving another nickel to Netanyahu and his right-wing extremist government to continue their horrific war against the people of Gaza. We also need to do a lot more work in addressing the massive level of income and wealth inequality, low wages, the housing crisis, our dysfunctional healthcare system, totally inadequate childcare, student debt, and the absolute need for affordable higher education, among many other issues.
Now think about all the problems, all the issues that he just laid out, right? How is Joe Biden helping with those issues? He's not.
But while we may have our disagreements with Biden, it's important to take a minute to think about what a Trump presidency would mean to our country and, in fact, the world.
What Bernie Sanders is telling you is now's not the time. He told you this in 2020. He told you this in 2016. This is Bernie Sanders having one foot in the progressive community and one foot in the liberal establishment community. Now, he just told you all those things. We got tremendous wealth inequality. We have education issues in this country. Biden's response to the war in Gaza is not good. We should not be giving Israel weapons and funding right now. Bernie Sanders has said all those things. Then he tells you that you should vote for the person who is against all those things. That's how Bernie Sanders keeps you in line with the Democrat establishment. If things are just as bad as you say they are, Bernie, why are you telling people to vote for the person that is not going to change those things? Joe Biden has been in office for, this is 4th year. If Joe Biden wanted to change those things, he could have. I said the same thing about Roe v. Wade. I said that could have happened. His first year, he could have codified. All these excuses. How many times does Bernie Sanders tell you to support the establishment? Mr. Anti-establishment candidate, Mr. I'm running a grassroots campaign, Mr. took all this money from working class people. How many times? How many has Bernie Sanders told you to support the very establishment, the very corruption that he told you to fight back against? Here he goes with Orange Man Bad.
If you believe in democracy, and I know you all do, if you believe in science, if you believe in justice and workers' rights, let me be very clear. The next several months will be the most important in modern American history.
He brought up workers' rights. Joe Biden broke the railroad strike. Everybody wants to bring this up because the UAW decided to endorse Joe Biden. By the way, these unions are paid to endorse candidates. They're paid to endorse them. The members of the UAW, according to Sean, made it very clear that they're not even going to be supporting Joe Biden in 2024. But now all of a sudden, workers' rights goes to Joe Biden. You can't deny the workers' rights under Joe Biden. Dude broke the railroad strike.
Yes, Donald Trump is a pathological liar. He's a racist, a sexist, a xenophobe, a homophobe, and a religious bigot.
We're going to pretend like Joe Biden didn't co-write the crime bill? We're going to pretend like Joe Biden telling black people, if you can't decide between him and Donald Trump, you ain't black? Who's got something on Bernie? Who is holding Bernie Sanders hostage? What do they have on these people? I want to know. What do they have on Ilhan Omar? What do they have on Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders is a registered independent. Why you keep caving to these people? We're going to pretend like Joe Biden didn't work hand in hand with racist ass Strom Thurmond? I don't think people fully understand. Having lived in South Carolina, I don't think a lot of people fully understand just how racist Strom Thurmond was, and that Strom Thurmond implemented laws in South Carolina, and they still have the nerve to have this man's name on multiple damn buildings. That was Joe Biden's friend.
Yup, Donald Trump has denied the election defeat that he experienced and is undermining American democracy every day, peddling conspiracy theories and converting the Republican Party into a cult of the individual.
Was there an issue with democracy, Bernie Sanders, when the DNC rigged the primary against you in 2016? Does that not count because it was the Democratic Party that was doing it?
Yep. Donald Trump has contempt for a free media and has encouraged violence and the never before seen use of the military and federal agents against U.S. citizens. But if you believe Donald Trump's first term was dangerous, I want you to think for a moment about what a second term would look like.
Here comes the Trump derangement syndrome. All of you should be very, very afraid. How are things working out for you now economically? Why are people pretending like things are just so much better under Donald Trump, under Joe Biden? I've said this before. Donald Trump is overt. Joe Biden is covert. Both are supporting corporate interest. Both.
If Donald Trump is elected this November, the fight against climate change is over. Period. It's the end, and the people of this planet will have lost.
I would say we've already lost that battle, considering the fact that Joe Biden approved the Willow Project, considering the fact that Joe Biden approved drilling off of the coast of Texas. So you see what him and Ilhan are doing? They're calling out these issues with the Republican Party, but they're not calling out those same issues with the Democratic Party.
Not only does Donald Trump believe climate change is a hoax, but he has and will once again appoint agency leaders and judges who will undermine our ability to move toward energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And if the United States retreats from the fight against climate change, countries like China, India, and the rest of the world will follow.
How are you fighting back against climate change and you're still supporting, funding, and endorsing wars? How you fighting back again? How you fighting back against climate change if you're giving Israel weapons, Bernie? Everybody, they talk about climate change, they want to talk about it in reference to pollution, the environment. Oh, we got to recycle, all that kind of stuff. Recycle is just a drop in the bucket when it comes to climate change. And you still out here bombing people, and the gases that are released from those bombs, if you were serious about climate change, you would be calling for an end to the military industrial complex. This is the problem that I had with the dim socialists. They only willing to go so far. They still want to be part way in the Democratic Party. They still want to be friends with the Democrat leadership, which they're all establishment. And they still kind of want to be friends with the people who are progressive that are supposed to be trying to push the Democratic Party in a different direction. No. You can't have it both ways. You just can't. These are things that revolutionaries knew. The Black Panthers knew that. Malcolm X knew that. MLK knew that. Kwame Ture knew that. You can't do it both ways. Ay.
That would have irreversible implications for the future habitability of our planet, for our kids, our grandchildren, and for future generations. If Trump is elected in November, the already obscene levels that we are now experiencing of income and wealth inequality will only get worse. In his first administration, Trump signed tax cuts into law where 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%, while at the same time he raised taxes for middle-class families.
Didn't Joe Biden continue some of Donald Trump's policies? Didn't Joe Biden continue some of Donald Trump's tax policies?
During this current campaign, Trump has promised to extend those tax cuts for the rich and to lower the corporate tax rate for companies that are making record-breaking profits. If Donald Trump is elected again in November, we can expect him and the Republican Party to escalate the attacks on women's reproductive health in this country. No, it was not enough for Trump to brag about appointing justices who overturned Roe v. Wade in this country. He and many other Republicans want to go further. They want a federal abortion ban.
I don't think I've heard Donald Trump say a federal abortion ban. I think Bernie is exaggerating there. But the point well-being is that when Donald Trump was in office, he accomplished the things that he said that he would accomplish. He said he was going to do these things. He did these things. When the Democrats have been in office, they haven't accomplished things in reference to the women's rights that they could have. Joe Biden could have codified Roe v. Wade into law before the Supreme Court made their decision. Obama could have done that and said he would and then changed his mind after he was elected. Bill Clinton could have done that. So instead of asking, like, we already know who the Republicans are. They're overt. They're loud about what they believe. They don't hide that. What Bernie should be asking is, why is it that the Democratic Party, the politicians that are supposed to be for women's rights, why they sat back on this issue for so damn long?
And that's what they will strive for if he is elected this November. If Donald Trump is elected again, it is likely, and I say this with a heavy heart, but it is likely that the almost 250-year experiment of American democracy is all but over.
What experiment? What democracy? The same democracy that rigged a primary against you? The same democracy that has redistricting? The same democracy that has voting machines that don't work in some neighborhoods? What democracy? The same democracy that has politicians that are owned and bought by corporations and Wall Street and military industrial complex? That democracy? The same democracy that tries to prevent third party and independent candidates from getting on the ballot in every state? That democracy? No. You got to be mistaken.
It goes without saying that Trump tried to overturn the results of the last presidential election, but his attack on democracy goes far deeper than the violence of January 6, 2021. If Trump wins, you can expect more extreme gerrymandering, more election workers being harassed and threatened, more young people and people of color being denied their right to participate in elections.
Seriously.
It does not end there. If Donald Trump is elected, he will once again attempt to overturn the Affordable Care Act and throw some 32 million Americans off of the health care that they currently have.
What happened to the health care that Joe Biden promised the American people? What happened to that? What happened to that, Bernie?
If Trump is elected, he will take gigantic leaps backward on issues of education, gun control, criminal justice reform, and immigration.
Let's break these down, okay? Gun control. I believe firmly in the Second Amendment. I believe firmly in the Second Amendment. I believe you got a right to protect yourself. So there's that. In reference to the criminal justice reform, didn't Donald Trump pardon? Didn't he pardon people when he was president? In reference to immigration, Joe Biden built onto Trump's wall. He continued building onto Trump's border wall. The Biden administration recently was trying to contact Donald Trump for help with the border. What are you talking about? We'll fast forward to this part here because I want to get to the Norm story as well. But I think you get the gist of what he's asking you to do. Where is it? Okay, this part right here. Here he comes with the monumental moment, this part.
Corporate world. So, my friends, this is a monumental moment. And one thing that we cannot do is bury our heads in the sand. Complacency is not an option. We've got to stand up, we've got to fight back, and we've got to make sure that the world and the country that we leave our kids and future generations is something that we are proud of. So thank you all very, very much. I look forward to working with you in the months ahead.
So you guys get the point. You see what this is really about between Ilhan and Bernie Sanders. They're the more recent examples, but others do it as well. That is their point. That's what they're supposed to do. Basically, they say they're progressive. And the reason why the Democratic Party was able to hijack the word progressive is because of Bernie Sanders, because he said he was progressive and ran through the Democratic Party. Then you had the Justice Democrats go into the Democratic Party. So all these Democrats are just walking around saying they're progressive and they don't even agree on most of the progressive issues. So that's one problem in itself right there. But basically what they have been doing is they've been keeping one foot in the progressive community to maintain some type of street cred so they can say, look, I did this, I'm progressive. But they got the other foot with the liberal establishment so they can still maintain their seats and have a political career. Either way, they're selling out the American people. And at this point, you cannot see them as any different from the people like Hakeem Jeffries and the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. They just trying to get paid. Let's look at that poll, Eric. Once again, telling people to vote for Joe Biden. It's a hot mess. But I did ask you guys, how do you feel about a 4-day work week? This is 1,302 votes. Would you approve of a 4-day work week? 83% said yes, 7% said no, and 10% said you were not sure. Interesting. Interesting. Thank you so much.